Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, we're all back together again on this Friday, September 29, 2017 day on our calendar. And I want you to go right to my website at greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com, running a pledge drive all month long until I can raise enough money to keep the show on the air. Thanks for the people who know they've donated. And let's see if we could get more people who listen to come in and chip in so this show can stay on the air. Because, there's a lot of people that like it, and then there's a lot of people that don't like it. And I have always wanted the Jesuits to contribute a bit because they need an enemy, right? They love enemies. They got to. I'm a natural-born enemy, and they didn't even have to create me. Well, they think they did because I was a Catholic. But yes, come on, Jesuits. If you want to you fund your enemies. You fund everybody. You fund your friends, your enemies, and then you fund even people you want to turn into enemies. So why don't you chip in? You got enough money in those little coffers of yours. You've paid out hundreds of millions of dollars just on pedophile cases, and that's not to count the ones if you had to pay every bit that you've done over the centuries, I'm telling you, you'd be so in the red, it wouldn't be funny. No, it wouldn't be funny at all. And the dogs realize it's not funny. You heard them laughing over there. But anyway, Friday, we got a lot. I mean, just when you think you've heard it all, you know that you're going to hear something that's just going to stick with you the whole day. And this little story came across my desk, and I got to read it to you. It's really quick. And if you got a minute, just sit there. Don't move. And listen. Listen to this. Okay, just when I did that, I hit the wrong button. So I got to wait a second. And here we go. Oh, no. Jeez. Okay, here it is. Listen to this story. Brazilian police have stumbled into a cocaine workshop with robots packing 150,000 cocaine baggies per day. The era of cocaine deflation is upon Wall Street, as drug lords in Brazil are betting on automation to ramp up production. Perhaps the automation is why Brazil's cocaine prices have suffered such a deflationary collapse. And then I've got a list of cocaine prices around the world. And who puts that together? And then I got the heroin prices, and they're dropping. And thanks to the robots. So now we know what they're doing. They're using robots to put together the cocaine baggies. I wonder if they can they're not going to get high at work like the workers. So maybe it does work good for them. So, okay. Robots putting together cocaine. And, who are you going to put in jail? I was thinking about that. Well, you just put robots in there, then the police come in, what are they going to do? Put the robot in jail? And is he going to talk? Is he going to squeal? What if you shoot him? You won't kill him. You can't do anything. All you can do is pick up the cocaine and go, and then they'll start up some other factory and have to build more robots. What are you going to do, impound the robots? Jail the robots? Fingerprint the robots? Could go on and on. And what if they learn how to fight back? Can you imagine the police having to go in and do drug busts? And then what about the good advantage of this? There's nobody in there to know how much cocaine was there. So, and nobody's going to talk, so the police can stash it away and make money themselves. They don't make much money, these policemen in the third world countries. If you knew what a cop made in Mexico, you'd realize why they pull you over for arrests, for traffic tickets, and then you just give them money and you go. It's not that much either, because they don't make that. I mean, I don't even know how they live, to be honest with you. But anyway, yeah, the robots in Brazil, I'm sure that's going to be all over the place, Oh, boy, wait till we all turn. That's going to be a robot world. I told you that a long time ago. And remember the story I did when I looked into the future? Well, it was just a fantasy I had. And I looked forward to only 10,000 human beings were surviving in this cave. And then all the robots were searching for them, and robots were looking a little bit like people. You couldn't tell the difference until you stabbed them, and then no blood came out. But I'm sure they'll devise a robot that'll just have all the characteristics of a human being, so you won't even know the difference. And maybe they're already there. I can think of a few people that will qualify. And why don't we make a list? I think we'd be on the show for about 10 hours. But yeah, maybe there are all these people running all these. Maybe the Pope is a robot Pope. That'll be next. You know, how far can we go? They are already stretching the limits by saying, you know, I'm God, I'm Jesus Christ on earth. And wait till the robot says, yeah, I'm the robot. Jesus was a robot. Everybody's robots. And robots bagging cocaine. And again, I wonder if they snort it. You know, can you imagine if you're a cop, you come in and the robots are all high, sitting at a table going, I ain't bagging this stuff anymore, man. We're not getting paid enough, man. In fact, they're not paying me anything, man. I'm getting high. But anyway, what are you going to do, arrest them for using? Oh, boy. Okay, enough on the robot story, Greg. There's a lot of other stuff going on in the world, as we know. And, of course, if we do a North Korea update, it's constantly back and forth. Now, the latest is Russia is amassing troops on the North Korean border, while the U.S. amasses troops on the South Korean border. And then there's the demilitarized zone. I recommend, here's the way I think we should end this whole thing. We ought to put Putin and the Chinese guy and Trump and the North Korean guy and put them in the demilitarized zone, and we'll have a tag team wrestling match. Now, who's China going to be on? Well, there's going to be 3, so it's China, Russia, and Kim Jong-un, or whatever his name is. So we got Trump on one side. Who's he going to get? Well, he better not get that fag from France who's the prime minister now. And he's not going to get the woman from Patricia May from England. And, is he going to get Merkel? That'd be a good tag team partner. Can't get Merkel from Germany. The Italian prime minister, he doesn't want to fight. You know him. He's going to say, listen, I can't. I'm going to mess up my hair. And plus, I just put a new pair of pants on and I don't want to mess the creases up. Did you know why Italians, when I lived there, this is the most important thing in the world, so I got to tell you. When I lived there, you learn to carry a carry-all. And it's a little bag that you learn to carry. And when I got there, I said, I'm not carrying it. It looks too faggy to me. But, after I Italianized myself, I was carrying a carry-all. And it's not a purse. Okay? It's not a purse. It's a carry-all. So one day, I was sitting there with my friend, and I was curious. I said, how come you guys do this? How come you don't have in America, we use wallets. And he said to me, well, if you notice, if you wear a wallet, it ruins the crease in the back of your pants, and the pants don't fit right. And I said, oh, okay, very good. So there's the reason. Your pants do not look right if you carry a wallet in the back. Makes sense to me. Maybe we should get carry-alls here, carry bags here for all the men. And I'm going to go, guess where I'm going to go sell them? In Montana. Oh, that'd go over big. Or how about cowboy country in Texas? Boy, that'd go over big. You know where I'd go first? I'd go right to San Francisco. I would sell out in a day. Hey, son, would you like your carry-all? Oh, yes, I can't live without them. Can I put my lipstick in there? You're a man. You wear lipstick? Well, it's the rage. Well, that's where I would go, to San Francisco, to sell that. This is really an interesting story, and I'm not going to divulge the name, but I had a lot of friends in high school, and one of them lived about a block from me, and he was an adopted kid, and we never knew that, and I knew his other brother, but he was adopted. I never knew that, but this guy, I'm not giving his name out, But he disappeared, and I liked him. The only time I didn't like him was when he was kind of violent at times, and this is what the story's all about. We used to play ping pong in his basement. And, man, if you beat him, he'd throw the paddle at you. He's kind of a high-strung guy, and he played football. He was a decent football player. And then all of a sudden, he was a kind of a loner type of guy. He disappeared. Nobody knew where he was. And I finally tracked him down. I don't know how the heck it happened. It was by chance, because I was working in the theater field in Southern California. And this name came up, and he had this small theater company in San Francisco, and he used to do playwriting, but he was also gay, and that shocked me because he was pretty. He didn't strike me to be a gay man when I knew him. He was pretty macho. I'm telling you, he'd throw your pool stick at you if you beat him. That's how competitive he was. So how did he turn gay? I don't know if he was gay from birth. I think it was the political pressure of living in San Francisco. Hey, I'm going to turn gay, man. Everybody's gay here. That's the only way I'm going to get going. And that's really what the political pressure, I think, has done to a lot of people. This acceptance of gayness has really exploded. And so people who have, they may get in an argument with a woman or something, and then all of a sudden they say, it's easier to be gay. I'm gay. Crazy. I tell you, if it wasn't politicized the way it was, there'd be a lot less gay people. That's all I want to say. Now I'm going to hear it from the gay community. Well, send it on. I don't really care. What are they going to do? Just yell at me. I mean, they're not going to engage in fisticuffs. By God, no. They're gay. I mean, why would they want to do that? And I'd scare the hell out of them, Even at my age. You wouldn't want to mess with me. But anyway, because I'm not gay. And that means I fight, all right? I'm not afraid to fight. Well, it depends on the guy now. I'm getting old. The younger, I might have taken on people that were a little bigger. But now, I kind of stray away from it, You get older. You want to relax. You're supposed to have wisdom. You're supposed to know more than young people. And you're supposed to set a good example by your calmness and your patience. So, there you go. What stories we have going today. I got to hear one. I got a story about victims from Harvey speaking out, and they're really amazed at what's going on. They want to stick them in. They want to stick them in barges that FEMA's brought in that look like jails. Yeah, I'm going in there. And then where the hell? You wake up in the morning and you're halfway to Africa, and it's going to be the reverse slave thing. The black guys are going to take the white people over and make them slaves in Africa. Not me. Don't get on a FEMA barge, whatever you do. So Harvey victims are talking. Not only that, Puerto Rico, people there, man. Where's FEMA? They're holding up all these ships with hundreds of thousands of aid supplies, and there's some kind of, we can't cross this parallel or ocean parallel. Trump today stepped in and he said, let's forget the rules. Just get the boats there. He's a builder. He wants it done tomorrow. Come on. Time is money. Money's time. And as far as North Korea goes, I am going to kick the living hell out of North Korea, he said again. And why not? Although I know Trump is an orchestrated puppet, it's nice and pleasant to hear a president talk like they really are, stupid. And it's very nice to hear him say the things he does. In fact, I get a good laugh out of it. He says some things that, quite frankly, you wouldn't expect from a diplomat. But quite frankly, it's refreshing, even though he's a puppet. And I kind of like some of the things he says. I'm going to kick the living hell out of that Kim Jong-un. And so we're back to my little tag team match to settle this war without a lot of innocent people dying. So we put him in the demilitarized zone, and we know we got three partners over there. We got Kim Jong-un, we got the Chinese president, we got Putin. He's taking his shirt off. He's coming in first. He's the guy that's going to do the body slam. The guy's down on the mat, and you jump up on the top of the ring, and then you do a body slam on him. That's Putin. Kim Jong-un, he's going to try to suffocate you with his stomach. And then the Chinese president, he's going to do that kung fu stuff on you. So Trump's got his handful, but he hasn't yet even picked a tag team partner. Now, who could that be? We've ruled out Merkel, the fag from France. We ruled out. We definitely can't have Patricia May, and you don't want any of the royal family. They don't know how to fight. I mean, you want Prince Charles in there, or Prince, what is his name? I mean, and the Queen of England. She'd make a good tag team partner, wouldn't she? And her husband. They'd hobble in the ring and they'd collapse just looking at those Chinese people. That's about as good as they're going to do if there was a real war. So who can we get? Let's see. We might have to go up. Is there any strong leader in Scandinavia? Or let's work our way up there. Germany's out. France is out. Denmark, I don't know who they are. Norway. They're rough people. Big people. Scandinavia, Sweden, I don't know. They're a little soft in a sense. They get too many good-looking women there to look at to worry about fighting. Let's see. I'm running out of places. I mean, these are our allies. And if you can't count on them for a tag team wrestling match, how the hell are you going to count on them in a war? But I'm trying to think desperately, who can we get? We may have to come, south of the border. I don't know about that Mexican guy. I think he's ready to fight. Maybe Brazil. Maybe somebody down there. We're going to fight. So if Trump finds his partner, and we got to find two now because it's a triple tag team, and then we fight it out. And tomorrow, you'll find out who wins. And that would be a quick way to end the war, wouldn't it? I mean, instead of losing all these innocent people. And look, even the loser only spends 10 years in a gulag. That's not bad, 10 years, that's all. So Trump, you better get going or you're never going to see your Trump Tower again. So you're getting up there, so you better win this thing. But, Trump would put up a good fight, even though he's old. No, you can't use your golf clubs either. And Putin, no secrets, KGB weapons of destruction in your hands where you poison somebody by touching them in the eye or something like that. None of that's going to be a fair fight. In Kim Jong-un, you can't strap any kind of explosives on your body when you're fighting, okay? In China, I know you're the smartest of all, right? That's what people think. Chinese people are smart. Is that really true? I mean, there's billions of them. Are they all smarter than Western people? That's a question I always wondered. Because we always hear Chinese are so smart. They could, wouldn't it be, I think my torture in the world would have to go into a geometry class with all Chinese people. Oh my God. I would they would have everything figured out like in 10 seconds, and I'd be sitting there going, now what did you say about the isosceles triangle? I think that's a good name though. If I had to do it all over again and I had a son, I'd name him Isosceles. Can you imagine that? I like that name, Isosceles. But the isosceles, remember what an isosceles triangle is? That's tomorrow's question. Well, anyway, I got some things here. I got a guy, before we go on to the next half hour of important news that you're getting here in the Investigative Journal. Of course, we always bash the Jesuits, and they're for good reason, because they're assholes. Let's see, remember the other day, I put out this little quiz. It wasn't remember I did my iPet Goat 2 contest and only 2 people signed up? And the reason was I charged $25 for it. I just wanted to see how cheap my listeners really are. And I got 2. So one of them emailed me today, and he's also sent me something, and he put in a real kind of interesting explanation. And his name's Aaron, and he sent in on the iGo2 and reminded me that I said the top 2 people would get time on my radio show, and since there's only 2, I guess they're both going to come on, so I'll have them on in a couple of weeks. But he said this, he emailed me today, because I put out a thing on my show the other day that, please explain to me why God allows evil. And send in everything. And I said, please send things in. I mean, don't just... And guess what? He's the only one that did. So now I got 2 that sent in on iPet Go 2, and then 1 on this. And I even said I'm going to cry if no more people don't respond. And guess what? It's the same one of the two guys that did the last one. But he said this anyway. In response, but remember this, it's not how many, it's the sincerity behind it. Right? But still, when you throw a party, you want people to come, don't you? Now, in response to a recent radio show, Greg, I'd like to provide the Jehovah's Witness biblical view on why God permits suffering and evil in the world. Okay. So Aaron must be a Jehovah's Witness, although I would gather he is, unless he studies religions, and he just wanted to do the Jehovah's Witnesses today. But he said this, Jehovah's Witness biblical view on why God permits suffering and evil in the world. This explanation will be 33 AUD, he sent in Australian money, I guess, cheaper than my recent iPad 2 goat explanation, so I'm happy to give free advice. Oh, I like that. I like him. Before the attached excerpt, chapter 11, from one of our books, What Does the Bible Really Teach? That's the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I told, maybe Aaron listened to my show the other day, I said, how come when they set up these stands, they never come up to you and say anything? You walk by, they just let you go. The other day I went by a Jehovah's Witness stand, and I said, aren't I good enough to be one? You don't like me? Is there something wrong with me? You can't stop me and say, hey, would you like to read this stuff? We're Jehovah's Witnesses. And we have a point. Come on, guys, you're never going to get people into your group. If you just let everybody walk by, you make people feel like they're not good enough for you. Get up there like the Mormons do. They run after you with their suits and ties, and they cost you, right? You can't get away from them. Now that I like. At least they persevere. At least they're, hey, you're not going. In one case, you're not going to make it through the world if you're not a Mormon. But thinking people. Okay, so he says, let's start again. Refer the attached excerpt. Chapter 11 from one of our books, What Does the Bible Really Teach? Some religions skim over this important topic and tell their grieving flocks, quote, God wanted another rose in heaven, or is earth just a testing ground for heaven, or is it a mystery? Thinking people can see through these explanations since they are non-biblical and are man's thoughts and philosophies. I hope you read the attachment. It'll clear the fog. Also, in regards to the iPad 2 competition, Greg, when do I get to appear on your radio show? Didn't I get into the top 2 as per terms and conditions of your competition? Yes, and I said I emailed him and told him he will be on the radio show. And I want to say this as a proviso. Aaron, get out there and keep telling people to send in donations, because what happens if I don't have a radio show? Then you don't get on the radio show. So it would behoove you to get as many people to donate to my show as possible, right? That's the way that's what I like. You see, that's what a Mormon would do. Get right out there and say, I need to get this money to keep this show going. And you can help. And you people out there can help too. Tell your friends all about it. It's worth it. Come on. A lot of other stuff coming on the other side of the break. And Aaron, don't you worry. The attachments I haven't had a chance to read because I just had too much on my plate today. In fact, it was so good, the lunch was so big that I had to take leftovers home for dinner. So I had a lot on my plate. But anyway, I will read this. There's 2 attachments, Why Suffering Bible Teach. And I'll read that and report on that maybe next week. And also, I will let Aaron know. I can't do it next week, but probably the following week we'll have Aaron on, and he can tell us all about his explanation of iPetGo 2. And then there's another gentleman that sent it in. I'll have to track him down, and he'll have another show. And I really like that because it makes my day go by quicker. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet. or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, just one more half hour to go this week on the Investigative Journal on the September 29, 2017 day on our calendar, the Gregorian calendar, the calendar that I wrote. Yes. But anyway, every now and then a story comes across in the mainstream media that strikes a chord with me. And this came across my desk today, written by Susan Hogan, I believe. It's the Washington Post wrote this. And this is a really sad story, but yet it highlights. We had a show last week regarding how babies are put in the black market and killed for their organs. And it's a huge problem. Not only are the children used for pedophilia, but they're also used for bloodletting, things like that, because these Satanists believe that children's blood gives them life. You know, they live a long time. Today, Hugh Hefner died. He was 91. And who else? Today, another Hollywood actress, who's probably up there in the club. I'm not saying she's one of the people I mentioned, or, you don't even, Hefner's got to be connected to somebody. She was 94. Kissinger, I think he's 127. And Bush is still kicking around, the Daddy Bush. I don't know how old he's getting to be, but he was jumping out of airplanes not too long ago. But that's what they think. Now, I'm not saying that's true. And I'm not encouraging the Illuminati to continue their activities, but it's interesting when you see all this go on. Then a story comes across the Washington Post, and I want to go over it with you because it's not only sad and tragic, but rings a bell regarding how kids may be used for organ transplants. Now, Lydia Reed, she sat on a gravesite on the day that her infant's body was being exhumed, since his funeral in 1975. She'd come to the grave almost every week and almost always with flowers, but last month she came only with a hope for an answer. Was her baby Gary Patton in that grave in Sloughton Cemetery in Edinburgh, Scotland? She had to know, and she had to watch. Call it a gut instinct, but something about the baby's burial 42 years earlier, along with events before and after, nagged at her over the years. She'd long sought permission for an exhumation. With the help of a member of Parliament, she finally reached this moment. And as we move on here, we will move on as soon as I get the rest of the story here, because it's good. Here we go. Was her baby in that grave, Sloughton Cemetery in Edinburgh, Scotland? She had to know, and she had to watch. I read that, didn't I? But Reed watched the dirt fly and the grave unearthed with a heavy heart. 6 feet down came the sight of a disintegrating coffin and a promising sign. A plaque bearing her baby's name. It was misspelled, Gary with 2 R's. Soon after, a noted forensic anthropologist studied the coffin's contents, baby garments, fragments of the coffin, and a little cross. But there were no human remains, no bones, nothing. Quote, "There was never any child remains in that coffin," a distraught 68-year-old Reed told the Washington Post a few days later. "I can't be sure he's dead now. That's the truth of it. I can't be sure." Her initial doubts about Gary's burial proved justified, but with a deepening mystery came a fresh volcano of anguish and anger. "Is my son alive?" she said, her voice trailing off, "and I have to look at all possibilities. My son could be anywhere." Now, can you imagine this? She loses her baby in a hospital, and I'm going to get to the particulars. And the baby's not even in the coffin. How does that happen? She's determined to find out the truth, though. And at the time of Gary's birth, Reed was a 26-year-old mother of 2. Her water broke late one night, and she went into labor just 34 weeks into the pregnancy. "I'd never gone into labor early," she said. "I was fearful of what could happen to my child." The next day, doctors performed a cesarean section, and Gary was taken to a special care unit. "They did not feel it was wise for me to see him," Reed said. "They didn't tell me, hold him. That's why it was, that's the way it was in those days." The hospital insisted she stay in her bed to recover from the C-section. But she repeatedly went to Gary's room, clasped his little fingers, and spoke lovingly to him. "He actually used to open his eyes and look at me," she said. "His eyes were not unlike mine, but more brown." Gary was not hooked up to machines, she said, but the hospital was taking pus off his stomach with a needle day after day. She learned why he was so sick 6 days after his birth when she was told Gary was being transferred to the city's Royal Hospital for sick children for an operation. He had surgery on his gut to remove the catheter that a doctor had left in him. Guy goes to medical school his whole life, and he can't remember to take out the catheter? It's pretty simple, Doc. What you put in there, you take out. Reed said, and that's a lawsuit. How come she didn't know about that then? They said his heart stopped 3 times on the table. They told me he had traumatic brain damage. They said he couldn't recover. There's something going on here. Wait till you hear this. Gary was put on life support. When they asked to turn it off, she agreed. "I just went along We were all very ignorant in those days. I was just a young mom. I don't know. It's not a question of ignorance, it's a question of, motherly instincts. I'm not blaming her. I'm just saying the whole story is completely sad and absurd and should never have happened. But later the hospital did a curious thing. Gary was put on life support again soon after. Police officers knocked on the door of Reed's home in the middle of the night to tell her that her Gary was dead. The hospital asked permission to do an autopsy, but Reed flatly refused because she wasn't at the hospital when Gary died. She insisted on a private showing at the funeral home, known then as St. Cuthbert's. She arrived with burial clothes for Gary that included a shawl her mother had crocheted and a rosary to go inside his coffin. Now, is she Catholic? I went to the undertakers and was met with resistance, Reed said. They told me I couldn't see Gary, but I wanted to put my son on his own baby clothes. I insisted. Eventually, they showed her a baby, a huge child with blonde hair, she said, but Gary, born prematurely, was small and had dark hair. All right. When she told, now this is the point she's got to get tougher. When she told them it wasn't Gary, they told her she was mistaken and she had postnatal depression. Everybody told me that, Reed said. I started doubting myself. On the day after Gary's burial, she carried his little coffin to the grave herself. Almost immediately, she felt something was wrong. The coffin felt too light to have a baby inside. I know what it feels like to hold a baby. Weren't they smart enough just to put a few rocks in there? Before the funeral, she worried they were burying the wrong baby. Now she worried they were burying the baby at all. But everyone dismissed her. Things like that just didn't happen, they told her. She went along but said it haunted her for years. The world turned upside down again in 1999 when a scandal erupting in Britain involving hospitals secretly removing the organs of deceased patients, usually infants, purportedly for medical research. In many instances, this was done without the knowledge or permission of the parents. In other instances, parents consented to allowing a tissue sample, thinking pathologists were taking a cell sample or, say, a slice of the liver. When they learned their babies had been gutted and buried without the organs, the public outcry was enormous. British tabloids called it organ snatching scandal. It had been going on since at least the 50s. Reports from numerous inquiries said the revelations first emerged at Bristol Royal Infirmary in England in 1999. It was announced that 170 were buried incomplete due to unwanted organ removals, but that was just the tip of the iceberg. The number grew many times over as it became apparent that the practice was routine at many British hospitals. At Alderhay Children's Hospital in Liverpool, the bodies of all children going under post-mortem were systematically stripped of all their organs. Under the Dutch pathologist Dick van Velsen, as the BBC reported, an inquiry found that he lied to parents, falsified records, statistics, research application, post-mortem reports, and even failed to catalog the organs removed. Because he's making a fortune selling them. Its findings, known as the Redfern Report, said that the 104,000 organ, body parts, and entire bodies of fetuses and stillborn babies were stored at 210 sites. Now, that's in England. You don't think it's going on all over the place? And the story we did about that, the sad story, is now just reaffirmed with this report that came out in the Washington Post. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg, because they're not going to get into the illegal sales, the illegal pedophiles, the illegal stealing of children, killing of children. Margaret Brazier, a professor at the University of Manchester, served as a chairwoman on her county's Retained Organs Commission, which met from 2001 to 2004, and was charged with overseeing the return of tissue and organs of the deceased involved to the families. She told the Post that the scandal revealed a huge divide between the medical community and patients. Scientists, particularly pathologists, insisted they had acted in good faith, usually for research purposes, but some just couldn't understand the outcry or why people got so bothered by a corpse. Oh, they couldn't understand it. No, my baby died. How do I know? Look back at her story. How did he die? You don't know. And how many babies were allowed to die? Maybe the doctor left the catheter in there on purpose so he could make a fortune off the organs after the baby died. And maybe how many suffocated back there when the nurse forgot to put, accidentally left the pillow on top of the baby's head. So the remains are not important. No, kill my baby and then steal his organs, but I'm not supposed to be upset. Or if my baby dies naturally, take his organs without my permission and cut them all up like he's a piece of meat. Like you're going to serve him up for dinner, or you're going to sell it to some rich guy like Kissinger or Bush or somebody, and I'm not supposed to get angry? The remains were important to some people because of faith. I don't care, faith too. You just don't do that to human beings. But then again, these people aren't humans that are doing it. They're by no means even close to being human beings. I don't even know why we give them the same, we shouldn't, some of these doctors, they ought to really, they ought to go under a knife by a non-doctor like me and see how they like it. No anesthetic, I'll cut it right off. The remains were important to some people because of faith, or they simply wanted their child buried whole. Cold rationality only takes you so far, she said of the medical community. You have to take into account how these individuals feel. When the scandal rocked Scotland Yard in 2000... Hey! Oh, the dogs. I thought we had a slight problem, but it wasn't even my dogs. I got those dogs over there. But, that's a natural instinct. You hear a dog screaming like that. I got up to even doing a radio show. And that's a dog. Imagine if it's a human being. But I would treat them all the same. Let's go. My heart's beating. I thought it was one of my little puppies. But anyway, when the scandal rocked Scotland Yard in 2000, Reed was in denial at first. Surely this didn't happen to Gary. She called the hospital and it was assured his organs hadn't been taken, but later when she asked for his medical record, she learned that wasn't true. She immediately thought about his burial. Had the pathologist lost her baby's body? Was that the reason for the mix-up at the funeral home? Where was Gary? She reached out to other parents. They wanted their children's medical reports too, but many times they came back with critical information blacked out. They wanted the organs back to bury with their babies, and they wanted stricter consent laws put in place at hospitals so this could never happen to other infants. Reed said hospitals told parents the practice was kept secret for our own good. Many Scottish parents sued, and roughly 70 of them received £5,000 apiece and roughly $6,700. Yeah, that's very generous, guys. Which would take some of the Queen's money. But others, such as Reed, received nothing because the procurator fiscal, a kind of investigative coroner, ordered the post-mortem. Most of the parents weren't in the least bit interested in the compensation. They sued because it seemed the only way to get the organs being withheld and forcing legislation to be passed so that it didn't happen again. And you think legislation's going to correct it? Reed organized Justice for Infants and became an advocate for parents as well as an unrelenting activist for change, even leading demonstrations. Once she had another mother chain themselves to railings outside the Royal College of Surgeons in Edinburgh for several hours. I was arrested, she said, adding the police had a heart. Scottish authorities asked a review group led by an ethics professor to investigate the scandal, and the group's 2001 McLean report estimated that 6,000 organs were still being retained and recommended tougher regulations. While some parents accepted the findings, many did not, including Reed, who called it a whitewash and said the figures were grossly underestimated. The exact number of infants involved still really isn't known. Eventually, some organs were returned to the parents, but seldom at once. One family had 4 different burial ceremonies for their child because the organs and tissue samples came back in bits and pieces. I mean, what kind of torture is this for people? At different points in time. In Reed's case, none of Gary's organs had been found, despite the report saying they had been harvested. And now there isn't even a body. Even if he's lying in a jar in a hospital somewhere, I want to know, Reed told BBC News after the exhumation. If it's possible to get my son back, I want my son back. Following the exhumation, police launched an investigation. Scott Mid Cooperative Funerals, which now owns the funeral home that handled Gary's burial, said in a statement that the company offered Reed and her family full support in what was been an extremely distressing situation for them. So really, what happened to this kid? I mean, despite the organs, his body wasn't in. Didn't they say they put bodies in without the organs? But where was he? What really happened to him? And this is appalling. Reed says someone who worked at the funeral home and hospital surely knows what happened to Gary. She has made a public plea to them to come forward. Gordon Lyndhurst, a member of the Scottish Parliament who wrote a letter on Reed's behalf to help her secure permission for the exhumation, said in an email to the Post that she deserves to have closure. He recently pressed the matter publicly, with First Minister Nicola Sturgeon noting Reed's role in leading this campaign, which exposed how hospitals had unlawfully kept I'm not going into a hospital, I tell you that. Kept deceased children's body parts for research purposes. Sturgeon in turn extended sympathies to Reed and offered an assurance that a relevant minister would contact her to try to ensure she gets answers that certainly deserves. And this whole thing is, the real story is the black market here and all of the illegal stuff that's still going on today. The people, the perpetrators, the buyers, the criminals killing these kids. And that's never going to get you're never going to get to the truth, because all this stuff they're doing is whitewashing it. Reed initially didn't go back to the cemetery after the empty coffin was found, but she returned last week for the first time. The grave is empty, but it's all I've got, she said. I've got those flower boxes there for Gary. He's got to get his flowers. But it's just horrible, desolate place now. It just doesn't feel the same any longer. It just feels awful. So there you have it. Here's the story that comes out in the mainstream press. And the real investigation is this baby. I mean, where is he? And there's a crime there, a huge crime, murder maybe. Or maybe, medical malpractice to a point that we got to know what happened to this kid, but that's being blocked somehow. Why? Because the top people protect each other. And that's why the pedophilia rings, the killing of babies for organs, the use for child sacrificing goes on to this day. And I say it goes on, it's even bigger than it was when this happened to her son Gary. And once you get cover from the top, once the top people cover up investigations, like the top DA in New York, like the top DA in Chicago, like the top federal investigators, like the president, like everyone at the top covers for their buddies, who most are fucking, funny to say it, sick people. The truth will never get out. And this story just kind of touched me in a way, because I see it just adds another piece to the puzzle on how this goes on. And isn't it interesting that they don't even, that could be in the hundreds of thousands of organs and babies. And, can you imagine the black market? And all these kids in America that are put on these milk cartons, what happens to them? And how come investigations are always stopped? Especially when you find a little child kidnapping. And then, of course, there's a stand down at the local level because, we have to wait 24 hours. He's probably just a runaway. Even when you get solid solid testimony, he was put into a car by some maniac. You're not going to go search the car because after 24 hours, the trail gets cold. And like police investigators have told me, if a child is stolen or kidnapped and you haven't seen anything, having a trail after 48 hours, the chances of you finding him are nil. So the most important part is to get on the case right away. But most of these high-level police officers or the people working at the top realize that they got pressure from the feds or whatever to stand down for those first 48 hours, so these kidnappers get away with another child to either put in a pedophile ring or to harvest for their organs or to do some ungodly child sacrifice or something. And that's where, and we've talked to police investigators who do this for a living, and that's their biggest concern, is that they don't get the real true guys that want to get to the truth don't get cooperation. And what they all say is this: nothing ever gets to the top. They always end up throwing a low-level worker who steals these kids or is involved in pedophilia to the dogs so that the papers can say we're solving this problem. But the problem gets worse all the time. So you know that this story here, the sad part about it is, where did this kid go? How did he die? And why wasn't he in his coffin? Wow. I mean, that is quite a story. Well, anyway, we're just about out of time here. I got about a minute, so I just wanted to mention to you, have a good weekend, by the way. And secondly, do go to my website at greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com. And if you stuck out the whole show, you're a better man than me, a better woman than me, because I don't think I can finish this last minute. I don't think I have another word in me to finish it. But anyway, go to my website at greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com. And you can get shows going back well over 12 years on what we call the Vatican-led New World Order, all its tentacles, how it operates with the secular world, how government leaders from the top are all puppets for the puppet masters in the Vatican and Jesuit order. And it's quite a story once you start dealing with it. And also, if you want to keep this show going, it's obviously listener-sponsored. No newspaper or mainstream or even many alternative places want to touch this story because they are controlled. They are COINTEL controlled by the same people we talk about. So help me out. Let's keep it going. And I know there are some people out there that enjoy the show. If you don't, you can just turn it off. It's that simple. But anyway, have a good weekend. And don't forget, come back Monday on, guess what? The Investigative Journal. See you then. Have a good weekend.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.